I swear, my heart nearly stopped when I saw Keanu Reeves turn pale as a ghost. 1 minute, he was eating his burger in peace, and the next, his hands were shaking as he reached for his phone. He dialed 911. Fast, and all because of a 5-year-old kid. But let me back up a little. It was just another regular afternoon in Los Angeles. The sun was shining, the streets were packed, and I had stopped at McDonald's for a quick meal before heading home. I wasn't expecting to see Keanu freakin' Reeves casually sitting in the corner, minding his own business. He was wearing a simple black t-shirt, jeans, and sunglasses, just low-key, the way you'd imagine a guy like him trying to blend in. He had ordered a simple meal, and despite being one of the most famous actors in the world, nobody was really bothering him. People noticed, sure, but they were respectful. And then came the kid, messy blonde hair, slightly oversized blue shirt, and in his hands, a broken toy car. He looked like he had been debating something for a while, glancing at Keanu, then back at his table. Sitting at that table was a man, sharp suit, cold eyes, a posture so rigid he barely looked human. The kid was scared of him. You could see it in the way he fidgeted with his toy car, gripping it like it was his only lifeline. I wasn't the only one who noticed. Keanu had been watching too, sneaking glances between bites of his burger. You could tell he was picking up on something. And then, out of nowhere, the kid moved, timidly, clutching that broken car. He walked straight up to Keanu's table. At first, Keanu just smiled at him, probably thinking the kid was just excited to see a movie star. But when the boy leaned in and whispered something in his ear, everything changed. Keanu went stiff. His face lost all color. His hands trembled for just a second before he grabbed his phone and, without hesitation, called 911. I swear, the whole restaurant felt like it went silent for a moment. And then, almost like he could sense the shift in energy, the man from the kid's table looked up. His cold, calculating eyes locked onto Keanu. That's when I realized, this was about to get dangerous. Keanu put his arm protectively in front of the kid, his voice steady but urgent. Yeah, this is Keanu Reeves. I need the police at McDonald's on Sunset, right now. There's a child in danger. The man in the suit stood up. He adjusted his jacket, took a slow step forward, and smiled, a smile so forced it barely even looked human. Ethan, the man said, his voice dripping with something that made my skin crawl. Time to go. The kid, Ethan, flinched. He took a step back, closer to Keanu. The actor, still holding his phone, subtly shifted, positioning himself between the boy and the man. I don't think he wants to go with you, Keanu said, his voice unnervingly calm. The man's smile twitched, just slightly. I don't think that's for you to decide. I don't know what scared me more, the fact that Keanu was clearly standing in the way of something serious, or the way the man wasn't reacting the way a normal person would. Most people, when challenged by a literal Hollywood icon, would at least be flustered. But this guy? No. He expected this, and that's when I realized something even more chilling, that he wasn't worried about getting caught, because in his mind, he wasn't going to get caught. And that's when everything took a turn for the worse. The tension inside that McDonald's was suffocating. Keanu stood between the boy and the man, his posture calm but ready. He wasn't backing down. But the man in the suit, Ethan's so-called guardian, didn't seem rattled. He didn't yell, didn't lunge, didn't even raise his voice. Instead, he did something that sent a chill down my spine. He laughed, a short, dry chuckle, like this was all just some amusing inconvenience. Mr. Reeves, he said, clasping his hands behind his back. I respect your concern. But Ethan and I have places to be. Keanu didn't move. Then maybe you can tell me why he's afraid of you, Keanu countered, voice steady. The man sighed dramatically, shaking his head like he was dealing with a stubborn child. He's 5. He's emotional. He doesn't always know what's best for him. Ethan shrank behind Keanu, gripping his broken toy so tightly his knuckles went white. That wasn't fear of a strict guardian. That was terror, and Keanu saw it too. Ethan, Keanu said softly, kneeling down to meet the boy's eyes. do you want to leave with him? The restaurant was dead silent. Everyone was watching. The boy hesitated for only a second, then shook his head. No. And that's when everything changed. The man's face went completely blank, like a switch had flipped. His smile vanished, and for the first time, I saw what was really beneath the polite act. Something cold. Something dangerous. That he took one step forward. "This is enough," he muttered, his voice lower now, no longer putting on a show for the watching customers. "Ethan. Let's go. Now." Keanu straightened, subtly positioning himself even more between them. "You heard him," he said, voice like steel. "He doesn't want to go." And then, the man's mask completely slipped, his fingers twitched at his sides. His jaw tightened. And then he did something that made my stomach drop. He reached into his jacket. Keanu's whole body tensed. The McDonald's employees were already watching closely, sensing the shift. "Sir, you need to leave," a young manager called, stepping out from behind the counter. His voice wavered. He was trying to sound in control, but even he could tell something was very wrong. The man in the suit took another step forward, then the sound of sirens cut through the air. Everything stopped. Outside the restaurant, flashing red and blue lights painted the windows. 2 LAPD patrol cars pulled up to the curb. The door swung open, and 2 uniformed officers stepped inside, scanning the room. The man in the suit didn't move. He just exhaled through his nose, slowly, like he was recalculating something in real time. Then, he did something that terrified me more than anything else he'd done so far. He smiled, and calmly, like he wasn't just moments away from potentially causing a scene, he raised his hands. There seems to be a misunderstanding." One of the officers stepped forward. "Which one of you called this in?" Keanu, without taking his eyes off the man, raised his hand. "I did." "And what's going on here?" Keanu looked down at Ethan. The boy was shaking. "I think this kid needs help," Keanu said. The officers exchanged glances. The younger one, a woman with a sharp, no-nonsense gaze, crouched down to Ethan's level. "Hey there, buddy," she said gently. "Can you tell me your name?" Ethan hesitated. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Ethan." The officer nodded. "Nice to meet you, Ethan. Can you tell me, do you know this man?" Ethan clutched his toy car. His lip trembled. And then he did the bravest thing I've ever seen. He looked up at her. Looked at Keanu. Looked at the man in the suit, and then, with a deep breath, he whispered, "He hurt my mom." Dead silence. The air in the restaurant turned ice cold. The older officer's entire demeanor changed. His stance straightened. "Sir," he said, "we're going to need you to come with us." The man's smile didn't even falter. "On what grounds?" he asked smoothly. The word of a child? One who's clearly upset and confused. His confidence was unsettling. He actually thought he was walking away from this. The officer took a step forward. "Sir, I'm not asking." And for the first time since all of this started, the man's face twitched, his eyes darted toward the door. He was about to run. Keanu saw it a second before I did, and before the man could bolt, before he could lunge or try whatever the hell he was planning, Keanu grabbed Ethan and pulled him safely behind him. The officer stepped in, blocking the exit. The female officer reached for her radio. "Dispatch, we're going to need backup at this location," and that's when the man moved. 1 second, he was standing there calmly. The next, he shoved the table into the officer's path and sprinted for the door. He was fast. Too fast. But Keanu was faster. I don't know if it was pure instinct, or if all those John Wick stunts were actually real, but Keanu moved like a damn action hero. In one motion, he grabbed the back of the guy's jacket and yanked him backwards. The man's feet left the ground. He hit the floor hard. The officer was on him in seconds. The struggle lasted only a moment. The man fought, twisting, nearly breaking free, but the officer had backup. Within seconds, the cuffs were on his wrists. Tight. He was caught, and as he was hauled to his feet, the illusion was completely shattered, the fake charm gone. The polished act gone. All that was left was a man who knew he had lost, and before they dragged him outside, he turned to Keanu, and he said, in a low, cold voice, "You just made a very big mistake." Keanu didn't flinch. Didn't react. He just looked down at Ethan and then, softly but firmly, he said, "No. I didn't." The room was dead silent. Keanu's face barely moved, but I saw it, the shift in his expression. A calculation. A decision. He knew exactly what this meant. They hadn't stopped the danger, they had only delayed it. And then, a noise outside, not sirens, not the sound of paramedics arriving. No car doors slamming, multiple. Keanu's entire body tensed. Ramirez immediately pressed a hand to his radio. "Vega, what do you see?" A crackle, then her voice, tight. "Urgent. Black SUV just pulled up. 3 men inside. They're watching the house." Ethan's mother sucked in a sharp breath. "They found us." The boy clutched Keanu's arm, his small fingers trembling. "Keanu." Keanu turned to him instantly, his voice calm but firm. "Hey. Look at me. You're safe. I promise." I don't know why, but in that moment, I believed him, and so did Ethan. The kid nodded, but he didn't let go of Keanu's sleeve. Outside, the SUV's engine cut, the doors opened, and we weren't alone anymore. They walk in like they own the place. Footsteps. Confident. Slow, not the kind of people who run, the kind of people who know you have nowhere left to go. The front door swung open, and in walked 2 men. No masks. No attempts to hide, like they knew they wouldn't have to. The first guy, tall, wiry, eyes sharp like a knife. He had the kind of face that looked like it never smiled. The second? Larger. Bulkier. A shaved head and a scar down his jaw. Neither of them looked at Ramirez. Neither of them acknowledged Vega, who had just stepped inside. They only looked at Ethan. Keanu moved, fast. He didn't even think about it. He just stepped in front of the boy, shielding him completely. "You're trespassing," Ramirez said, his voice sharp. The tall man smiled. "You're interfering," he replied. That's when I knew, they weren't random thugs, they were professionals, and they weren't here to talk the trade. "Ethan doesn't belong to you," Keanu said, voice steady. The tall man tilted his head. "Funny thing, that." He reached into his pocket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a folded piece of paper, and when he held it up, I felt my stomach drop. A custody document, stamped. Signed. Official. According to the law, he does. Ethan's mom gasped. "That's fake," she choked out. The tall man barely even glanced at her. "Prove it." No hesitation. No fear. They had planned for this. Ramirez's jaw tightened. Even if it were real, taking him by force is a crime. The man's eyes flicked toward the front window, toward the SUV waiting outside. "You think anyone's gonna stop us?" he said. The air in the room changed. The unspoken truth was suddenly very loud. They had more people, they had more power, and they weren't leaving empty-handed. But neither was Keanu. He didn't even blink. "Then take me instead." Silence. I think even Ramirez stopped breathing. The tall man blinked, like he hadn't expected that. "Excuse me?" Keanu's face was stone. "You want a trade? Take me instead." Ethan's grip on his sleeve tightened. "No." But Keanu wasn't talking to him anymore. "You want something valuable? Something to leverage? Take me. You know exactly who I am." The tall man tilted his head, and then, for the first time, he grinned. A slow, amused, chilling grin. "Now we're getting somewhere." The deal that shouldn't have worked. Ramirez looked like he was about to explode. "This is not an option, it is." Keanu cut him off, still calm. Still in control. "You let Ethan and his mom go. I go with you. That's the deal." The tall man looked him up and down, considering, calculating, then, a slow nod. "All right. But you don't get to back out later. Keanu extended his hand. No hesitation, the two shook that it was done, and before anyone could argue, before anyone could stop it, Keanu turned to Ethan, crouched down. Hey. His voice was gentle. You're gonna be okay. I promise. Ethan's face crumpled. But what about you? Keanu just smiled. I've got this. And somehow, Ethan nodded because Keanu Reeves doesn't lie, but then everything went wrong. The tall man clapped his hands. Alright, boys. Let's, bang, not a gunshot, something louder, something outside, the whole house shook, then, I yelled at a crash and suddenly, chaos, something had gone very, very wrong and whatever it wasn't part of the deal, chaos, the whole house shook. A deep, earth-shaking boom came from outside, followed by the sound of shouting. Not from the police, from someone else. Ramirez's radio crackled, Vega's voice was sharp, urgent. We've got more incoming. 3 more vehicles just pulled up, these guys aren't backing down. The tall man cursed that he hadn't planned for this. Keanu's face didn't change, but I saw it, the calculation. He was thinking fast. Looking for an opening, but Ethan was panicking, his tiny hands gripped Keanu's arm. They're coming for me, he whispered. Tears filled his eyes. Keanu crouched down, steady as ever. Hey, look at me. Ethan's lip quivered, but he did. You're not going anywhere, okay? Keanu's voice was low, reassuring. I won't let them take you. Ethan swallowed hard and nodded. The boy believed him, and somehow, so did I. The takeover outside, more cars pulled up. Engines roaring. Ramirez turned to the tall man, face hard. You lied. The man's expression twisted. This isn't me. His own people had turned on him. The second guy, the one with the scar, shoved past him. Enough talking. His voice was gravelly. Annoyed. We take the kid. We leave. Vega's voice snapped through the radio. They're surrounding the house. Ethan's mom tensed. Her breathing was shaky, but she forced herself up, protecting her son. They won't stop, she murmured. They won't stop until they have him. Keanu's jaw tightened. Then we don't let them. The escape plan. Vega and Ramirez moved first. They hurried to the front windows, checking the streets. I saw their shoulders tense. 5. No, 6 guys, Ramirez muttered. They're waiting. The tall man, the one who had made the deal, was shaking his head. This wasn't the plan, he hissed. We were supposed to take him quietly. Scar Jaw scoffed. Well, that didn't work, did it? Keanu's eyes flickered between them. Then, suddenly, he grabbed Ethan's hand. We're leaving. The men turned. Excuse me? Keanu didn't explain. He just moved straight toward the back door, the only way out they hadn't blocked yet. Ramirez saw what he was doing and nodded. Vega, cover the front. We're taking them through the alley. Vega's voice crackled back. Got it. Go. And just like that, Keanu, Ethan, and his mom were moving fast. The men in the house didn't react in time. By the time they realized what was happening, Keanu had already slipped outside. The alley chase. The back alley was tight, dimly lit. Silent. Keanu led the way, holding Ethan close. His mom stumbled, still weak from what had happened earlier, but she pushed forward. They were almost at the street, almost safe. Then, a car screeched around the corner. The SUV. One of the men jumped out. He spotted them instantly. There, he shouted. Keanu's grip on Ethan tightened. Run. They bolted. Footsteps pounded behind them, faster, closer. Ethan's mom was struggling. She couldn't keep up. Keanu saw it, made a decision in a split second. He scooped her up, not even slowing down, full sprint. Ethan's little legs were pumping as fast as they could. They turned a sharp corner into the main street. Ramirez's squad car was already there, waiting, the officer flung the door open. "Get in. Now." Keanu didn't hesitate that he threw open the door, pushed Ethan and his mother inside, and slammed it shut. The car peeled off, leaving Keanu behind. The moment that changed everything, the SUV skidded to a stop. The man from before, Scar Jaw, stepped out. That he was furious. "You really think that's it?" he called. Keanu turned, finally facing him, calm, unshaken. "No," he said. "I think it's over." And that's when the second squad car pulled up, right behind the SUV. Ramirez had called backup, lots of it, and suddenly, the men realized that they'd lost the end of the road. The cops moved in. The men tried to run. Didn't get far, the SUV was blocked. Scar Jaw, he turned back to Keanu, and for the first time, he looked afraid. Keanu just tilted his head. "Did you really think you were getting away with this?" The man didn't answer because he knew the truth. This game, it was over. A new beginning. Ethan and his mother were taken to a safe location. She was treated for her injuries. Ethan, he never let go of his toy car, not once. A week later, Keanu went to visit him. When he walked into the room, Ethan's face lit up. "You came back." Keanu smiled. "Told you I would." The boy ran up to him, hugging him tight, and Keanu, he hugged him right back, because for the first time in a long time, Ethan wasn't scared anymore. That he was finally safe. For the first time in what felt like forever, Ethan was safe. And no more running. No more fear. No more hiding. But Keanu, he wasn't done yet, because there was still one thing left to do. 1 week later, the hospital room was quiet. Peaceful. Ethan sat on the bed, still holding his toy car, the same broken one he'd clutched that day in McDonald's. His mom, resting beside him, looked better. Still recovering, but stronger. Keanu stood in the doorway, watching them, and for the first time since all of this started, Ethan smiled. "You came back." Keanu grinned. "Told you I would." Ethan ran to him, hugging him tight, and Keanu? He hugged him right back, because this kid, this tiny, brave kid, had been through so much. And yet, somehow, he still had hope. That was everything. The truth finally comes out as Ethan sat beside him, playing with his toy car. Keanu turned to his mom. "How are you feeling?" he asked. She exhaled. "Better. Thanks to you." Keanu shook his head. "I didn't do this alone." She smiled softly. "Still. If you hadn't been there." Her voice faltered. "I don't even want to think about what could have happened." A pause. Then, finally, the question that had been hanging in the air. Who were they? Ethan's mother hesitated, then, a deep breath. "They weren't after Ethan." Keanu frowned. "Then why?" "Because of me." Silence. She swallowed hard. "A long time ago, I worked for people I shouldn't have. I thought I could leave. Thought I was free. But they, don't forget." Keanu's jaw tightened. "So they came after Ethan." She nodded. "They wanted leverage. A way to force me back in." The realization hit hard. This was never about a custody battle. It was never about legal documents or rights. It was about control and the people behind it. They weren't finished. The offer. Keanu exhaled. "So what now?" Ethan's mom looked at her son. "We start over." Her voice wavered, but there was determination behind it. "I'll do whatever it takes to keep him safe. Even if it means disappearing." Keanu thought for a moment. Then, quietly, "You won't have to do it alone." She blinked. "What?" He leaned forward, serious now. "I have friends. People who can help. They'll make sure no one comes after you again." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do that for us?" Keanu glanced down at Ethan, this tiny, brave kid who had trusted him completely. "Because I was in the right place at the right time." A pause, then he smiled. "And because that's what heroes do." 1 month later, Ethan and his mom had moved. A fresh start. A new life. No more fear. No more threats, and Keanu, he kept his promise that he stayed in touch, made sure they were okay, and one day, months later, a package arrived at Ethan's doorstep, inside, a brand new toy car, and a note. Even heroes need a good ride. Stay strong, buddy. Keanu. Ethan beamed because no matter what happened next, he knew he was never alone.